There's an image burned into my mind. From long before all of this began. I was 15, sitting in a dusty classroom while Mr. Alden, our history teacher, talked about World War II. He said we didn't understand real war, that video games and movies had made it all seem like fun. Then he showed us pictures. Cities reduced to shadows. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, places wiped clean off the earth. And he told us to imagine standing outside our homes, looking at our front doors with no fear, no suspicion. And then, blink. It's gone. Everything. Everyone. Just gone. That was years ago, since the collapse last fall. Now I know exactly what he meant. I woke up to silence. No cars, no birds, no voices, just wind and the smell of ash. Phones stopped working days ago. No radio, no news, just one emergency broadcast on loop. Shelter in place. Do not attempt to evacuate. But it's too late. There's nothing left to evacuate. I went outside for the first time in 48 hours. The air is heavy, expectant, and the sky wears a jaundiced hue, an unnatural, feverish yellow that stains everything it touches. It isn't the yellow of sunrise or the haze of summer dust. It's the color of illness, seeping into the bones of the city, turning sharp edges soft and familiar places strange. Every breath feels thick, like the atmosphere itself is struggling to keep its shape. The silence is total. There are no cars, no footsteps, not even the chirp of birds or the distant bark of a dog. But it's not the silence that unsettles you most. It's the absence. The sense that something has gone terribly, irreversibly wrong, not just with the world, but with the rules that govern it. People are gone. Everyone. Their clothes remain in neat piles or tangled heaps. Shoes abandoned just inside open doors. Half-eaten meals sit on tables. Forks still resting on plates. TVs glow in empty living rooms, casting blue-white light on furniture, playing shows for no one. It's as if, in a single, collective moment, humanity was erased, deleted from the face of the earth with the cold completeness of a computer command. No struggle, no warning, just an empty stage, props left behind. The actors vanished. You listen for the faintest sign, an echo, a cough, a footfall, but there's nothing. Just your own heartbeat, loud in your chest, and the distant, oppressive hum of the yellow sky. Last night, when the city should have been wrapped in darkness, you saw something that has haunted you ever since. At around 2 a.m., you glanced through your window, compelled by a flicker of movement, a glimmer of hope that you weren't entirely alone. Across the street, in a house that had been empty since the first week, a light shone in the upstairs window. It wasn't the steady, reassuring glow of a lamp left on by mistake, but something restless, shadows moving behind thin curtains, shapes flickering in and out of view. You pressed yourself against the cold glass, barely daring to breathe. The world outside was so still that any movement felt immense, dangerous. The light in the window swayed, as if someone or something was pacing back and forth. Then, abruptly, the curtain twitched. A face appeared, peering out, searching the street below. But it wasn't a face you recognized. Not exactly. The features were wrong, stretched unnaturally, as if pulled too tight over bone. The mouth hung open in a grin that was far too wide, and the eyes shone with an intensity that seemed to pierce the darkness, too bright, too knowing. For a moment, you felt the full weight of its gaze, as if it saw through you, recognized you, understood something terrible about your presence. The smile grew, impossibly wide, and the figure leaned closer, pressing against the glass. You stumbled back from your own window, heart pounding, unable to look away. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the light snapped off. The window became a black square in the yellow night, and the house was silent once more. Now, as you stand outside, the memory of that face lingers. You search the quiet houses, the empty streets, half expecting to see that unnatural smile peering out from every window. The world is holding its breath, waiting for something you can't name. And in the sickly yellow light, you realize that the greatest terror isn't what you've seen, but what you haven't. Whatever change the world is not done yet, and neither, Mog, it seems, are the things that remain. I've started writing these entries in case someone finds them. Maybe you're out there. Maybe you're reading this. If they start smiling at you, run. The rain hasn't stopped since yesterday. If you can even call it rain. It's 3 a.m. now. I know because I haven't slept. I've been lying here, listening. It doesn't sound like normal rain. It echoes, like something falling from miles above the sky, like it's trying to get through. After what we saw yesterday, none of us can really explain it. The way the city melted, not burned, not flooded, just dissolved, like it was never built to begin with. Marshall said maybe it was mold, something in the cabin air that made us hallucinate. But how do you hallucinate the same exact thing? And how do you explain what happened to his eyes? They're burned. Badly. Like someone pointed a welding torch at them from inside his skull. He hasn't said much since. Just sits near the door, whispering to something that's not there. The air inside the house was heavy, pressed down by the storm that had raged for days without pause. Rain hammered the roof in relentless waves, and the wind keened through the gaps in the windows, persistent and wild. Since the blackout, the world had been reduced to candlelight and shadows. Every familiar thing transformed by darkness and the constant threat of thunder rumbling overhead. Electricity was a memory, the hum of everyday life replaced by silence, save for nature's fury. I stood in front of the television, remote in hand, hope flickering with every press of the button. Maybe, I thought, if I tried again, some signal would break through the chaos outside. Maybe someone, somewhere, was broadcasting news, reassurance, or even just the comfort of routine. But the screen offered nothing but a shifting gray static, soft and menacing. I almost turned away, ready to accept defeat. When the static faded, silence filled the room, deep and absolute. Then the voice came. It wasn't the clipped, hurried tone of a news anchor or the familiar jingle of emergency alerts. It was just a voice, low, unhurried, and unmistakably personal. It spoke my name, carefully, as though savoring the syllables. The sound cut through the storm, through the walls, through me. Before I could react, the static returned in a violent rush, 1,000 whispers overlapping, until even that faded, swallowed again by silence. I tried to steady myself, every reason in my mind fighting to explain it away. The storm must have played tricks with the signal, electrical interference. Maybe. I said it out loud, repeating the words like a charm against fear, but the conviction wasn't there. My gaze drifted to the darkened satellite dish outside, battered by rain and wind. It hadn't worked since the power went out. There shouldn't have been any signal at all, let alone a voice, my name spoken into the emptiness. "It's just the storm," I said again. The words felt thin, brittle as glass. Marshall was seated across the room, his form slouched in the armchair we'd dragged closer to the fire for warmth. He'd hardly spoken since the blackout began, lost in his own thoughts, eyes fixed on the shifting shadows that danced across the walls. But when he heard me, he turned. His face was pale, drawn tight with sleepless nights and worry. Yet, as he looked at me, a smile crept across his lips. It was the first time I'd seen him smile in days, but there was nothing warm or reassuring in it. It was a smile of knowing, a secret kept behind his eyes. It was as if he'd been waiting for this moment, for me to hear what he had already accepted. In the hush that followed, the storm seemed to recede just enough for other sounds to filter in, the groan of the house settling under the wind, the slow drip of water from the ceiling, Marshall's breathing, deliberate and calm. I realized then that the voice wasn't news or warning. It wasn't interference, either. It was something else. Something that knew us, watched us, waited for us to listen. Marshall's smile lingered, and I felt the shape of fear change inside me. No longer the fear of storms or darkness or even isolation, but something closer, more intimate. A fear that what Marshall knew, what the storm had already whispered to him, was waiting just outside the reach of candlelight, ready to step in. I keep thinking about what Mr. Alden used to say. The scariest part of war isn't what you see, it's what disappears without explanation. If tomorrow comes, I'll write again, but if not, the rain will tell the rest. I never imagined I'd bury my family in a hole behind a gas station, but I guess no one really plans for that kind of thing. I wrapped what was left of them, photos, a scarf, Mom's old necklace, into a canvas bag and lowered it in. No bodies, no markers, just ash, silence, and memory. Marshall came out while I was still digging. He didn't say a word, just held his wallet like it was glass. Then he pulled out the photo, him and James, on the beach, frozen in sunlight, holding drinks and smiling like they were going to live forever. He crouched beside the grave, looked at the picture for a second longer, and then let it fall in. James. God, I hadn't even asked about James. In all the chaos, I'd been so wrapped in my own grief I forgot that Marshall had lost someone too. Maybe even worse, because he didn't even have ashes to bury. Just a photo and silence. I looked toward where downtown used to be. Nothing left but smoke and steel bones jutting from the earth. Their apartment was somewhere in that mess. We both knew that. We didn't have to say it. Grief has a way of making the world feel small, shrinking everything down to a raw ache and the people you share it with. That day, sitting by the grave, it felt like nothing existed outside of the two of us and the weight of everything we'd lost. Marshall's words hung in the air, sharp and unfinished, as if the future he'd planned had been ripped away mid-sentence. I remembered the night we hunted for that ring, turning over couch cushions and emptying drawers, laughing at how bad he was at keeping secrets, never thinking, not for a second, that any of this could end before it began. We prayed, out of habit more than hope. Words whispered into the dirt, carried away by the restless wind. The silence afterward was heavy, but not uncomfortable. We were getting used to the quiet, the way it let memories slip in around the edges. I listened to the wind stirring the grass, the faint sound of water somewhere far off, and the soft hush of ashes shifting beneath our feet. It was the kind of stillness that made you think, maybe, if you listened hard enough, you could hear the person you'd lost breathing just out of sight. But the world doesn't pause for grief. It pushes back in, often in ways you don't expect. Marshall stiffened beside me, his head cocked like a dog catching a scent. He asked if I smelled it, and at first I shook my head, but then it hit me. A strange, acrid smell, not of earth or leaves or even the familiar tang of wood smoke. This was harsher, synthetic, burnt plastic, unmistakable and out of place. We both turned, scanning the edge of the woods that bordered the graveyard. There, between the dark trunks, a plume of smoke rose, darker than what you'd see from a campfire. twisting into the sky like a warning. It wasn't drifting, but rising straight up, steady and purposeful. Someone, somewhere close, was burning something they wanted gone, or maybe something they wanted found. Our grief shrank as something else crept in, curiosity, unease, and an unspoken question that pulled us to our feet. We left the grave behind, drawn forward by the smoke, unsure what waited for us beyond the trees. We hadn't seen signs of anyone else in days, maybe weeks, but now, someone's out there, and they want to be seen. The next day started with silence. Not peace, just the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. Like the world forgot how to make noise. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, but everything outside was still wet, dripping, like the sky hadn't really let go yet. Marshall hadn't moved. He sat by the door, his bandaged eyes facing the hallway, like he was waiting for someone. I told myself I'd try the radio again. Maybe catch another emergency signal. Maybe the voice that said my name would come back. But the only thing I got was faint static, until it wasn't. This time, there was music. Not a broadcast. Not words. A humming sound. Gentle. Female. Like a lullaby. Like someone was rocking a child to sleep in the dark.
It started as the faintest hum, almost easy to ignore, until I realized it was threading its way up through the floorboards, insistent and clear, as if calling from just beneath my feet. The air in the living room grew colder with every step I took toward the center, a chill pressing in against my skin. There was no basement under this house, just a silent crawl space of dirt. But the sound felt so close, so alive. I knelt, pressing my ear to the wood, my breath fogged in front of me. I knocked once, a sharp rap on the floor. Instantly, the humming died away. For a moment, there was silence.
Then, 3 knocks echoed back, sharp, deliberate, perfectly spaced. A reply. My heart hammered in my chest. I stumbled backward, but the knocking didn't stop. It grew louder, heavier, each thud rattling the boards beneath me, like something was clawing its way up from the dark earth. Panic rose in my throat. I screamed for Marshall, but he only watched me from his chair. A strange, serene smile on his face, as if he'd been waiting for this. And then, impossibly, the floor itself shifted. Just for an instant, the wood seemed to bulge, almost as if the house was breathing, alive with whatever was beneath. I bolted outside, gulping in the thick, yellow sky. The world looked wrong. The street was deserted, unnervingly quiet. Every house shuttered tight, except for one. Across the road, the house that always seemed empty flickered with light from an upstairs window. And there, behind the glass, a shadowy figure stood. The same shape I'd glimpsed 2 nights before. The same unblinking eyes following me, watching, waiting. I'm writing this from the car. Doors locked. Engine off. I can't hear the humming anymore, but I know it's still there. Something's under the house. And whatever it is, it knows we're here.